Hello and welcome to ASCP and the Rogue Pharmacist with Benjamin Knight Fuchs. In each episode, we will explore how internal and external factors can impact the skin. I'm Maggie Stasek, ASCP's Program Director, and joining me is Ben Fuchs, skincare formulator and pharmacist. Hi, Ben.
Hello, Maggie.
Ben, can you break down what fulvic minerals actually are and why they're getting so much attention in the skin world?
Are they getting a lot of attention now?
Well, I don't know. You said.
Oh, I've been using them for a long time. I haven't seen them around. I'm starting to see them out. And you know, in science, as a chemist and as a pharmacist and as a researcher, we tend to see things sometimes decades before the mainstream understands it. And so when you say they're getting attention, it could be that they're starting to get attention. I've been working with them for many years because they're unbelievably powerful. But let me ask you this, because they are starting to get some press. What do you know about them?
Nothing.
Zero.
Yeah.
Literally? You're kidding me because you got to.
No.
Yeah, okay.
You're about to teach me.
I'm going to teach you. Okay. So, how should I put this? Okay. So, Earth, our lovely planet Earth, is different from the moon, but in the center of the Earth is the moon. The moon is a dead rock, and in the center of the Earth is a dead rock. But Earth is different from the moon because we have fauna. We have flowers and fauna and animals and living creatures, et cetera, and the moon doesn't. So what is the distinction? Well, it turns out that on top of the Earth, on top of the moon that's at the center of the Earth, you have 6 to 12 inches of magic. And when I say magic, I mean everything that brings us life, on terrestrial life, that is. And I'm not talking about the oceans, but terrestrial life. It is derived from this 6 to 12 inches that's on top of the dead rock. The 6 to 12 inches are called topsoil. I call it dirt, just because it's graphic. You know, we have this when you hear the word dirt, it doesn't have a positive connotation, but to a farmer, it has an incredibly positive connotation, or to a gardener. And so what is it about the 6 to 12 inches of topsoil that allows a life to be created that's not on the rock? What's the distinction? Well, it turns out that on top of the rock, this moon-like substance in the center of the Earth, you have creatures. And these creatures have an ability to eat rock. They call them lithotropes. Litho means stone and trope means eating. They're literally rock eaters or stone eaters. And when they eat the rock, they transform the rock into this amazing, amazing substance. If you take piece of rock, and put it in water, what's going to happen? It's going to sink, right? It doesn't interact. And quick digression, in order for chemistry to occur, it has to interact with water. Without water, chemistry doesn't occur. And that's why they dehydrate things. They take the water out so that they'll be stable. So once you add water, activity occurs and food becomes perishable, et cetera. So water's the linchpin here. Rock doesn't interact with water, and that's why the moon is dead, and that's why the center of the Earth is dead. But these lithotropes, these stone eaters, have an ability to digest rock, to eat rock, and secrete out, turn the rock into long chains of what we call minerals, but were really atoms. Now, if you're, have you ever been on a subway or a bus or something where you're packed tight and everything, you can't move your arms, you're just like squished in. If people are separated away from you, you can move your arms, you can have some action. A rock is a bunch of atoms that are like people on a bus or people on a subway or people who are packed in. It doesn't do anything. But by virtue of these lithotropes' ability to spread out the rock, now you have places where these atoms can interact with water. And given that the interaction with water of all chemical substances is what creates energy, this stringing out of atoms turns the dead rock, which when I say dead, it can't interact with anything, into living atoms. And these living atoms, by virtue of their ability to interact with water, conduct electrical charges. In fact, we have a term for atoms or elements. They call them minerals, but atoms are elements that interact with water. When they're in water, we call them electrolytes. You've heard the term electrolytes, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like it's kind of like a meme. Did you ever see the movie Idiocracy?
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it's got electrolytes, right? Brondo, it's got electrolytes. And they made a joke of it because electrolytes has this connotation of being sort of like, what are they and why are they good? And it's sort of pseudoscience. But really, electrolytes are nothing more than atoms, elements off the periodic table that dissolve in water. Once they dissolve in water, they become electrically active. They go from dead rock into electrically active substances. But what's more, wherever you have electricity, you have magnetism. Go together. They call it electromagnetism. So wherever you have electricity, you have magnetism. So now you got these long chains of atoms from the previously dead rock, which is like the moon, doesn't do anything. Now you got these long chains of atoms that are interacting with water, conducting electrical charges, and having a magnetic property. And this magnetic property pulls things in. So you got this center long chain of atoms or elements. They're interacting with water in a way that they couldn't previously before the lithotropes. And on top of that, they have a magnetic ability to pull in other substances, particularly amino acids and fatty acids and vitamins and plant nutrients from dead plants that have been dropped into the dirt. And so you end up with these complexes with a center of atoms from previously dead rock that is now interacting with water and is able to attract and pull in vitamins and minerals, all the stuff you need for life. This combination of water and the long string of electrolytes form something called clay or clays. This is what clays are. And so these clays have this ability to pull things in. They're very, very electrically active. All clays in water are electrically active. They pull in vitamins and minerals and amino acids. And now from this previously dead rock, you've got these clays that can pull in nutrients. And they have phytonutrients from dead plants. And they have vitamins. And they have amino acids. There's just incredible nutritive substances that support life. And in biology today, there's something called the clay theory or the clay hypothesis of evolution. And it's believed that this is how life began on Earth. Is you have these stone eaters eating the rock and then creating long strings of elements that were electrically active that could interact with water that would pull in amino acids and vitamins, et cetera. And this is what biologists now believe how life began. And any farmer will tell you this is the best kind of soil, clay kind of soils. So these long complexes of water-soluble elements, along with all the other substances that they pulled in, are called technically fulvic acids. They call them fulvic acids because fulvic means yellow. They have a yellow color. And these fulvic acids are the water-soluble part of dirt. Dirt is not water-soluble completely. But if you take dirt and put it in water, what will happen is some of the stuff will sink and some of the stuff will dissolve. The stuff that dissolves is the fulvic acid, not fulvic minerals. Fulvic acid. Sometimes people get confused. Like, what's the distinction between fulvic acid and fulvic minerals? Well, fulvic acid is an acidic substance that's water soluble. It's made up of these long strings of elements that can interact with water plus everything else. The mineral part of the fulvic acid, those long strings, those are called fulvic minerals. So you got fulvic acid, which is the water soluble part of dirt, which has a central core of I call them polyelectrolytes because they're electrolytes, but there's long strings of them, so I call them poly. Has a central core of polyelectrolytes and a bunch of nutrients that are magnetically attracted to them. The mineral part of that, the electrolyte, the string, is called fulvic minerals. And this is what has the electrical properties. The vitamins, those are important, obviously, for life, but the long string is incredibly valuable for a lot of reasons. First of all, the electrical properties are so unique in nature because they have an ability to protect against oxygen and to deliver oxygen, right? So you got an antioxidant and an oxidant. You got oxygen and an antioxidant in the same molecule. That's unbelievable. That's first of all. Secondly, these negative charges that are associated with these long strings have wonderful organizing properties. So what is a negative charge? A negative charge is electricity. And we've talked about this in the past. Remember we talked about negative ions and negative ion generators and going out in nature to get negative ions and how when you go out and after it rains, you can breathe that wonderful smell. We go to the beach and we walk barefoot on the ground. This is all in an attempt to deliver negative ions into the body. Fulvic minerals are powerful sources of negative ions. And so these negative ions, in addition to being detoxifying and having antioxidant properties, also have an organizing property. They help organize things. One of the things that happens as we age, and this gets to skin, but it's also true about the entire body. One of the things that happens as we age is we decohere. I call it blobification. We blobify. We turn into a blob. Why is it that we turn into a blob? We lose our organization. We lose our structure. What do fulvic minerals do by virtue of these long chains and lots of negative charges? They organize. They help the body cohere. And they help a specific part of the body cohere. And this part of the body that they help cohere is the most important part of the body. In fact, it's the most abundant part of the body. So what is the most important part of the body and the most abundant part of the body? In other words, it makes up the highest percentage of the body?
Water.
Bingo. Exactly. They have a particularly organizing ability or organizing property for water. And you and I have talked about this in the past, structured water, organized water. As we age, our water loses its structure. There's water and there's water. For people who haven't heard us talk before, not all water is the same. The water in the body is mostly structured water. There's some of it's not structured, but the vast majority of the water is organized, structured water. And organized, structured water has incredible biological properties. It's an information carrier. And it's how the body transmits information. You got 100 trillion cells in your body that have to somehow communicate with each other. And they communicate with each other through the medium of water. But that water has to be organized for that to happen. And just to give you a little example, if you take a rock and throw it into a pond, you ever do that when you're a kid? You throw rocks in the pond and it creates waves, right? And so the waves will come from the center right where you threw the rock in, and then they'll disperse and they become less and less and less as they go out, right? That's dispersion of water. Structured water does not disperse. So if you put a rock in structured water, the wave will stay the same right through. It won't lose any of its information. It won't lose any of its property, which makes structure in the water really, really important because this is how the body communicates from head to toe. It communicates from head to toe through the water, but the water has to be structured. It has to be organized. And one of the main structuring seeds or centers is fulvic minerals or ionic minerals. I call them ionic minerals. Some people call them fulvic minerals. These ionic minerals structure the water part of the body. Now, this is why you want to eat fulvic minerals. And the best way to eat fulvic minerals is to eat dirt. Well, of course, we're not going to eat dirt, but what do we eat from the dirt?
Vegetables.
Vegetables. And that's why you want to eat your vegetables. Above and beyond the phytonutrients and the vitamins and all the good nutrients in there, you're getting structuring elements. And that's especially true with the watery vegetables. My dad was a meat eater. And he used to call it rabbit food. He used to call lettuce rabbit food. And, because he would see it as just as watery, kind of nothing. That's the most beneficial vegetables for structuring liquids. So watery vegetables are incredibly valuable because they have a high concentration of structured water by virtue of their mineral content. So eating minerals is the way you want to get these things into the system. Eating vegetables is how you want to get these fulvic minerals into the system. But that presupposes that those fulvic minerals are in the soil. But today we have a big problem because of over-farming and because of pesticides and fertilizers, not to mention the fact people don't eat vegetables. And so a lot of people are deficient in these organizing elements. And consequently, we become decoherent. We decohere. We become more blobified as we age. So taking these fulvic minerals internally is very, very important. But the same thing happens topically. You can actually create organization of the fluids in the stratum corneum, the liquid in the stratum corneum, as well as in the epidermis and the dermis via the fulvic minerals that you apply topically. And this makes them very valuable, not only for daily care, but especially for post-wounding or post-ablative therapy. You can actually spray on, and most of my liquid products contain these. You can actually apply them to the wound to accelerate healing dramatically by supporting organization. But there's more. There's a lot more. Because it turns out that these ionic minerals that are in the fulvic minerals are also very important for the most important part, arguably the most important part of a cell, that we talk about all the time these days, and that biohackers are all focused on. And now in medicine, we're starting to understand that this little structure inside the cell is burning out really fast, and that's what's accounting for a lot of diseases. What is that little part of the cell? Mitochondria. Mitochondria, right? So the mitochondria, their job is to turn our food into chemical energy. Well, today we have a big problem with mitochondrial burnout because we're getting so much food, we're getting so much electrical energy, our mitochondria can't handle it. Ionic or fulvic minerals help stabilize mitochondria. So in addition to being electrically active and structuring the liquid portion of the liquid phase of the body, they also have mitochondrial benefits. They stabilize mitochondrial health, and they allow the mitochondria to be more efficient in converting food into energy, which of course is going to have wonderful anti-aging benefits, wonderful healing benefits, wonderful anti-disease benefits. But there's more, because these long strings of minerals, these polyelectrolytes or fulvic minerals, as you call them, also pull in oxygen. Remember I said they're antioxidants, and they can magnetically pull in oxygen, same molecule. It's amazing. So when you apply fulvic minerals topically, you pull oxygen into the skin, and oxygen is very important not only for cell health, but it's also for healing. So you're going to, and this is especially true, everything we're talking about is especially true for post-ablative therapy, post-laser, post-peel, post-microdermabrasion, et cetera, dermaplaning, all that stuff. So they also pull in oxygen. But there's more. They also pull in water. And that makes them the quintessential moisturizer. Not the BS. Whenever I say moisturizer, I got to do air quotes, because it's BS. In fact, using a moisturizer will block electrical activity on the skin. Moisturizers act like a dampening agent. It dampens electrical energy. But when you apply fulvic minerals to the skin, you get real hydration because you're literally pulling water into the tissue magnetically, electromagnetically. And it's not just any water, it's structured water. It's water that supports coherence, it supports organization. And you can actually experience this yourself if you, we have a product called biochemical mineral mist, which is made up of these minerals. If you spray it on your hair when you come out of the shower, the water from the shower that's still on your hair will get pulled into your cuticle and makes your hair really soft visibly or tactily. You can actually touch it and you can see how soft your hair is when you come out of the shower after you spray our biomimetic mineral mist, because the minerals are pulling in water from the shower into your hair shaft. Same thing happens in the skin. And we know that skin aging and skin health, or skin anti-aging and skin health, are dependent on moisture, dependent on water. A moisturizer, wax and emulsifiers and silicone and vegetable oil, that's not going to do it. But ionic or fulvic minerals will. So applying fulvic minerals to the skin directly truly moisturizes the skin, truly hydrates the skin, particularly, as I say, post-healing. But there's more, because remember, these minerals are pulling in vitamins and they're pulling in nutrients. So the same thing happens on the skin. If you apply nutrients to the skin post-fulvic minerals or with your fulvic minerals, they're going to get pulled into the tissue as well. And not only into the tissue, into the skin, into the cells themselves. So they're the ideal transdermal ingredient. They pull things in. And that's why I always say to people with our biomimetic mineral mist, always use your topical vitamin C and your topical retinol and topical vitamins after or with your biomimetic mineral mist. You get better penetration. And this phenomenon also occurs internally. So when you eat your vegetables or your fulvic mineral supplements, we have supplements like our cellular repair complex, you'll get better penetration of the nutrients that you take or the nutrients that you're getting from your food. And this is all from one ingredient. And then, as if that weren't enough benefits, I mean, you can see how incredible these molecules are as ingredients. When you use fulvic minerals in products, you're not getting just fulvic minerals, because remember, fulvic minerals are the center, that string, but they're all associated with vitamins and aminos and fatty acids and phytonutrients. So whenever you get these fulvic minerals, you're getting all the vitamins and the nutrients and the aminos and the fatty acids that are important for cellular health. So there are this complete nutritional supplement that has everything a cell needs and provides electrical activity that supports antioxidation, that supports flow of electrical energy, and supports the absorption or the attraction of water and of oxygen, all from the same molecule. The way I look at it, you're crazy if you're not using these things on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Of course, eating them internally to make sure you're getting your vegetables, as well as supplements, our cellular repair complex, and then using them topically.
That concludes our show for today, and we thank you for listening. But if you just can't get enough of Ben Fuchs, the ASCP's Rogue Pharmacist, you can find him at truthtreatments.com. For more information on this episode or for ways to connect with Ben Fuchs or to learn more about ASCP, check out the show notes.